Violet Evergarden is an anime that follows a young girl, Violet, a veteran who was made and raised as a tool for war, and her journey on becoming a ghostwriter, or how the show describes it, auto-memory dolls, for people who want to write letters but can't write down their feelings on pen and paper. In doing so, she embarks on her own path of learning emotions and adapting to the normal world. I am of the opinion that Violet Evergarden is the best one-season anime ever made, and that the show you're probably thinking about pales in comparison. But what about the movies? Well, that's what we're here to discuss today, as although the two films are very well received by the fans, the holes are far too wide to ignore. So, sit back, relax and enjoy as I review Violet Evergarden, Eternity and the Auto-Memory Doll, and Violet Evergarden the movie. In Violet Evergarden, Eternity and the Auto-Memory Doll, Violet meets up with Isabella, a rich lady that goes to an all-girls boarding school and is tasked in tutoring her and assisting Isabella in getting her life together. While doing so, she learns about Isabella's past and feelings, and the two get to bond. If I had to describe this film in one word, it's negligible. While yes, this film acts as an extended episode of the anime and has a few really beautiful scenes, nothing that happens holds any substance. If anything, if this film didn't exist, my opinion of Violet Evergarden as a series would be absolutely identical. That's not to say I didn't enjoy the film, otherwise I wouldn't have watched it a third time, let alone make a video on it. But oh man, was this film filler. Things I liked about Violet Evergarden, Eternity and the Auto-Memory Doll. Benedict's Blue. My man Benedict single-handedly stopped this video from being a full-on rant. Thank you so much for being a disagreeable giver to everyone at CH Postal, no matter how much stick you get from the other Auto-Memory Dolls. Thank you so much for tolerating Taylor, a character who we'll get to in a minute, and I appreciate that you had your screen time to be someone who won't just be remembered as the mailman who wears high heels. Isabella York stroke Amy Bartlett. I'm just going to call her Isabella for the sake of the video. Isabella's backstory is one that's similar to what we've seen already in the main series, but hers is one of the most detailed and relatable. First off, the theme of sheltering, missing out on what's happening in the real world, and seeing someone who's just better than you in all aspects of life, is one that we can all relate to. Let's be honest, you watch anime, you're watching an anime review, don't lie to yourself, people. Whilst her bitter nature is a little annoying at times to watch, you can sort of understand it, and her relationship with Violet, while starting hostile and malevolent, slowly ascended into one of transparency and friendship, to the point that people may mistake it for intimacy. Like bruv, that dance scene, so reminiscent of Scent of the Woman, is just wonderful. Side note stroke tangent. People like to make the mistake of Isabella and Violet's relationship of being a lesbian one. While there is an element of humour in those statements in the community, and jokes should be treated as, well, funny, I don't see their relationship as such whatsoever, and to mistake a relationship of friendship, both of same sex and of different sex, to be an intimate one, to be very harmful to a piece of media. Keep this in mind as it will be very important for an upcoming review in the future, but I thought I'd mention this now as these are my thoughts on the movie. And then Isabella starts to talk about Taylor, her long-lost sister, which so heavily draws parallels to Gilbert and Violet's relationship. It just makes all her interactions that much more meaningful and wholesome. Okay, admittedly, the first section was a tad slow paced compared to other episodes in the anime, but by now I think we've all gotten used to it, and KyoAni is a master at presenting exposition in an engaging way. Not to mention that the goodbye between her and Violet is pretty heartbreaking when you consider what we've been through over the last 40 minutes. Now that you've had the opportunity to understand the character of Isabella York, and how much she brings to this movie. Things I didn't like in Violet Evergarden, Eternity and the Auto-Memory Doll. The entire second half. What the hell happened here? Now the film just transitioned to some boring sitcom reject where nothing of substance ever happens. We don't learn about the characters we already know. There's no real expansion to the lore, other than like real vague mentions of technological advancements. And overall, the second half of the film negates anything that was built up from the first half, now that it's got less to do with Isabella and more to do with Taylor. I know Taylor as a kid, but she is unbelievably annoying. Not only that, but a lot of the time she spends on screen is not memorable, like, at all. Well, there is one scene where she might seem a little bit cute, albeit a little bratty and spoiled. I don't deny that this is probably a me problem, but any time she's on screen, I just cannot stand to listen to any of her dialogue. And all in all, her mere existence feels like one big tangent. If we compare her to every other filler character in the series, Anne, Charlotte, Leon, hell, even Ilma from the OVA, they all contribute to the growth and the cast that we have followed all along, that being Violet Evergarden. What does Violet gain from Taylor being on the screen? Oh, Violet's a good mentor now, in a job she hasn't done since episode 1 of the anime. Instead of, you know, ghostwriting. And some basics in reading and writing, reminiscent of Gilbert and Violet. So I'm looking at episode 1 Violet, but more annoying and less relevant. Right, I know I'm clutching at straws a little bit. But you know what, if we get that gorgeous reunion that has been teased and built up for like an hour at this point, it'll all be good in the hood. The ending. What on earth was that? Alright, spoilers until timestamp on screen, or just check out the next chapter. I'll probably just chapter them up a bit. So wait a second. You're telling me that the only reason why I endured these last 50 or so minutes was to see the reunion between Isabella and Taylor, and now you're not even gonna give it to me? Like, there is genuinely no reason why not to have the ending. It's almost as if they threw it out the window and was like, nah,
let's just do it later when no one can see it. Even though that's the only real narrative we have in this second half of the series, let's make it God, reduce it to atoms. Also, Benedict is a bad character. And
no, neither Taylor nor Isabella will be in next year's movie.
But trust Sammy when he says that that is a good thing.
Obviously, they said that in Japanese, but I'm gonna bring this up as well because I know one person at least will mention this. If that's the ending they went for in the light novel, then the light novel is also shit. In conclusion, Violet Evergarden, Alternity and the Auto-Memory Doll tells the story of a noble girl named Isabella York that lives in a private school, and how Violet must tutor her whilst also sending a letter from her to her little sister Taylor. This movie should have hit me like every other episode in the anime, but it just didn't. It was 50 minutes of throwaway, and I don't mind filler as long as there's something to gain out of it. If you look at My Hero Academia, The Two Heroes, that movie is a complete negligence. There is nothing of substance. That is the most skippable movie ever. But at least that movie is fun, and it shows the characters in a way we haven't seen them before. If Boku, no originality, can present their movie as such, I would expect better from Violet Evergarden. Having said that, the first half was really good. It was. But that was it. And it feels like it just got worse, as I can't really rate the good decisions made in the first half, just because the film ended so anticlimactically. Final rating, 40 minutes out of 92 minutes. And keep my man Benedict's name out your mouth. But what about the 2020 movie? Violet Evergarden the movie tells the story of Leyden 4 years after the war, as new evidence gets found that Gilbert Bougainvillea may be alive. If I had to describe Violet Evergarden the movie in one word, it is draining. That's more like it. That's the Violet Evergarden content I know and love. A beautifully crafted swan song of the series, cementing the legacy of the anime with a fantastically written movie to end on a bang. It's flawed, don't get me wrong, but it is so much better than the previous film. Things I liked about Violet Evergarden the movie. The world building. I did mention this when talking about the previous movie, but as the film is set 4 years later, you can see the technological advancements in Leyden compared to what we saw in 2018. You got radios, telephones, a better education system for the population, and hell, even the soundtrack from the original show has a newer style remaster. It's awesome to see the modernization of the world we have fallen in love with, and also showing the effects that it has on our characters. Going forward is always a good thing, right? Right? Well, if everyone knows how to read and write now, what's the point of auto-memory dolls to write letters? Hell, why would anyone write a letter if we can just talk on the phone? These are all things that the movie covers. See, that's what I like about Violet Evergarden. The show always looks at themes from all angles, and the idea of advancement is one of them. Side character development. Finally, our loyal supporting cast were able to come to their own during this movie, starting with Diet-Fried Bougainvillea. We get to see a more sensitive side to his character, as it's safe to say that during the show, he was a dick. But in this movie, he's still a twat, don't get me wrong, but he's more mature, and we really get to see how Gilbert's death affected his life as well. Although we don't condone his behaviour, at least now we understand it, especially now that he's willing to reconcile with Violet and apologise for any insensitive comments made to Claudia Hodkins. Speaking of Hodkins, you get to see how much Violet really means to him. Actually, no, not just Violet, but the rest of the employees at CH Postal. He really acts as the father figure to all the characters on screen, not to mention a certain scene which I'll get to in a second because it is spoilers. Iris, Erica, Katlia, Benedict, all of them. Everyone gets a much deserved screen time and a rewarding climax to their arcs. But before we actually get to the important parts of the movie, we learn about this girl whose grandmother received letters from CH Postal for 50 years straight. This is the movie's way of showing the legacy that the auto-memory dolls had to the world of Leyden. Violet Evergarden is a timeless masterpiece. It's canon. The story of Eurus. Right, no crying aloud in this video. The story of Eurus is the best client story in the franchise. Now granted, he has got the longest screen time, so it's not really a fair comparison to everyone else. But it's not only because of that. His story is by far the most tragic and the one that we can all learn from. First and foremost, the idea of a terminally ill boy who struggles to find the words to say a final goodbye to everyone he knows and loves without leaving them worried or heartbroken is just a magical story in of itself. And the exact words he uses were, oh man. No crying, no spoilers. I said that just 2 seconds ago. But fam, appreciate your family, guys. Because when it's all said and done, who's gonna be there on your deathbed? Who's going to cry at your funeral? Not just then, but the many days afterwards. I'm sorry to get so philosophical about this, but fam, love your family whilst it lasts. Because one day you will realise how much you have taken them for granted. Right, anyways, sorry, tangent over. Why do I say then that Eurus is the best client though? Why is his story the greatest in my opinion? Oh, because it's the saddest for sure. And it teaches the lessons that I mentioned about 20 seconds ago. But also it shows you how much Violet has grown to help others. Think about it. Eurus didn't have the money to pay for the letters, but Violet allowed it. She wanted to see him despite having a 3-month wait. And despite the fact that Violet went on a detour to Ecarte Island, for reasons we will get to in a second, she was willing to drop everything to fulfill her promise to Eurus. All in all, it's a tragically satisfying narrative to watch, and even though it didn't make up the vast majority of the movie, it was certainly one of the highlights. Things I didn't like about Violet Evergarden the movie. The ending. Okay, from now till the end of the video, spoilers, so click on this timestamp to listen to my summary and my final rating. I just want to mention that there are some parts I really did like about the ending, and by extension the revelation that Gilbert is alive. Firstly, I was talking about Hodkins and how he acts as Violet's guardian throughout the series, but there's this one scene where Hodkins talks to Gilbert alone, which was absolutely heartbreaking. We find out how much Gilbert Bougainvillea means to Violet, and the fact that Gilbert refuses to see her, as he believes that he has raised a war machine who will only take orders. This in of itself makes Hodkins feel angry, frustrated. The fact is Hodkins knows how much Gilbert means to Violet, and that all of that is for nothing. It's just a punch to the gut to watch. And remember, these two are portrayed as best friends throughout the anime. Furthermore, you can sort of comprehend the logic that Gilbert has for hiding away all this time. Of course, if you raise someone and they just want to follow orders from you and everyone around with no independence, it can be a little bit frustrating. This reasoning in of itself just adds to the chaos, which makes that tearjerker of a reunion that much more rewarding to watch. But that's also my problem with it. You see, Violet's entire storyline was about learning how to deal with life away from war, away from Gilbert, and dealing with that loss. Now, of course, she was willing to abandon her quest to look for Gilbert to fulfill her promise to Eurus and write the third letter. It still seems like a really cheap way to cash in on a happy ending. Not to mention that the relationship between Gilbert and Violet was a romantic one. I'm willing to die on this hill, but I see their relationship as nothing more than a father-daughter relationship. Because, let me get this straight. So you're telling me the guy who taught Violet how to read, write, talk, have a purpose, even give her her name, is a significant other? How does that make any sense? And I'm not completely over the fact that Gilbert shouldn't even be alive. Granted, they did foreshadow it throughout the anime and almost every episode, to be honest, and in the previous movie. So I'm not too mad about it, but wow! Maybe this is my bias talking, as I love this show to bits, and it's sad to see it end. But wowie, would I have respected this series so much more if they had had the balls to go with the unconventional ending. It is what it is, I suppose. So to summarise, Violet Evergarden the movie concludes the story of Violet, a veteran who is made and raised as a tool for war, and her journey on becoming a ghostwriter. With awesome voice acting, fantastic animation, and a tearjerker narrative, albeit a pretty flat ending, my final rating is 100 minutes out of 140 minutes. Let me know in the comments what you think of the Violet Evergarden movies, as I want to know what the general consensus is with those endings. I absolutely adore Violet Evergarden, and I don't think that these two videos properly put into words how legendary this series actually is. However, I do want you to let me know what you thought of this video, as I only want to get better. If you yourself want to form your own opinions and you want to see a somewhat unconventional guy doing the same thing, subscribe to my YouTube channel and join my Discord server. Please like, favorite, share, subscribe, and of course, make sure to view.